I pulled apart last 5 years of prelims paper, subject by subject. One number stopped me cold. Current affairs. Counted directly, plus every static question that is really a current affairs wearing a disguise has ranged from 16 to 33 questions depending on the year. Same exam every year, and yet the size of one subject nearly doubles depending on the year in which you sat. If a subject can't even agree with itself on how big it is, how should you trust the weightage that somebody handed you in year 1? I have gone through this process to this interview stage 3 times, cleared prelims 4 times, scored 256 in English literature optional and 144 in essay. If I were starting again in 2026, there is a list of things I would stop studying, not because they are unimportant, but because I now know the difference between knowing something and burning 50 hours on something that buys you almost no marks. This is not a here is what to avoid video. Every stop comes with the exact replacement method, what to do on day 1 instead. Watch till the end for that because the method matters more than the list. Independent 5-year breakdown of prelims paper put the ranges roughly like this. Polity 11 to 16 questions, history 9 to 18 questions, geography 8 to 16 questions, economy 9 to 15 questions, environment 13 to 19 questions, science and tech 4 to 13 questions, and current affairs 16 to 33 questions. Look at two extremes, polity and current affairs. Current affairs is the widest swing, 16 to 33 questions, a 17 question spread across 5 years. Polity is tightest, 11 to 16, just 5 questions wide. The gap tells you which subject you can plan a fixed number of hours around and which ones you can only prepare a method for. UPSC has never published an official subject wise breakup. Every number I gave you comes from analysts classifying the same question differently. The data is real. The certainty everybody sells you around it is not. Use these ranges to prioritize. Do not use them to gamble. The first thing that I would stop is having you treating subjects as having a fixed weightage quotas. Polity is 15 question. No official source has ever said that. It's a number that gets repeated so often in coaching circles, it starts to feel official and it is not. Why that hurts? Your say your budget you budget 100 hours to polity because someone told you it is worth 18 questions a year. The year that you actually sit in the exam, polity delivers only 11 questions. You have now over-invested in one subject and under-invested in whichever one quietly took its place, probably geography or environment, since those are the subjects that absorb the swing. You don't find out until results day. That is not a study plan. That is a bet you didn't know you were placing. Do this instead. Treat the range as a floor, not a ceiling. Polity, history, geography, and economy are your core. Together, they run 52 to 54 questions most years. Budget your floor hours against the low end of each range. So, even a bad year doesn't blow your plan. Then let the remaining hours flow towards whichever subject current events are pushing that season. For example, currently war is going on, polity is very important. So maybe polity is being pushed. So keep an eye on current affairs, see which subject current events are pushing that season because current events is what is pushes a subject from floor towards its ceiling. Over half the paper sits in 4 subjects, that is polity, economy, geography, history. Everything else is a supporting act. Stop 2 will be medieval and ancient deep dives. History runs 9 to 18 questions a year and almost all of it is carried out by modern India and art and culture. Ancient and medieval history sit at the bottom of that range contribution year after year. Here is what that actually looks like a question. Modern India question tends to test cause and consequence. For example, why the non cooperation movement was withdrawn, what the Government of India Act 1935 changed, who split from whom, and why. That's a testable in 100 different phrasings because there is an chain of events to interrogate. An ancient or medieval question is far likely to test a single isolated fact. Which dynasty built which structure, which text belongs to which period, who is the author, etc. There are fewer angles and fewer questions. So, what do you need to do? Build a minimum toolkit for ancient and medieval history. If you want, I can build you one. If there is a good demand, I will provide this toolkit. Major dynasties and timelines, architectural styles that match to their period, then rulers and text that various sources mention. Read them once, then go to PYQs. See what is being asked these years in the PYQs. Treat art and culture as its own high yielding block, not a footnote inside the history. Temples, school of painting, dance forms, Buddhist and Jain architectures, their texts, etc. They show up on their own terms, separate from their political or history timeline. Third thing I would stop is reading 5 books per subject. You don't have to do a PhD. 4 modern history books, 3 polity references, and 1 confused aspirant. That is not an exaggeration. That is actual shelf in the half study room photos aspirants sent me. Why it hurts is 4 books on one subject leave 4 half memories and not one solid answer. Every new source resets you to page 1 instead of deepening your recall because every author sequences the same facts differently and your brain has to refile them every time. Revision time goes into rereading and never into retaining. So do this instead. For polity, go to Lakshmikant, go for one full read, or you can go to other books like uh, Our Constitution. So you can take any book. Lakshmikant I'm mentioning because most of you prefer Lakshmikant. So you can go to other books as well, or you can go to the notes by M. Puri notes as well. I referred for M. Puri notes. Now, read whatever source you are sticking to, read chapter by chapter. Don't skip the boring ones like local government or constitutional bodies because those are exactly where UPSC hides facts based questions nobody else is answering correctly. In modern history, you can go for Spectrum, you can go for Bipin Chandra, whatever book you are comfortable with, either of these 2 books. Same treatment, read them chapter by chapter. Don't skip the facts. Don't skip those chapters which are boring ones. For geographies, stick to which are your spine. For physical geography, and always refer your atlas. Atlas should be used very extensively with current affairs as well. Whenever you see a new thing in the news, mark it on the atlas and write in your notes as well. For environment, go for one focus source. I usually refer the Shivin these days. Shivin is very good. You can go for that. Or you can go for this, whatever source you do. Because this subject is changing every year, outdated book will teach you wrong answers. That is why you need to update your source on environment. Read one book properly and please revise it repeatedly. Now, UPSC does not test standalone news. So stop treating current affairs as a second syllabus. It tests static knowledge that wears a headline. Now, every month there are compilations that are given by a famous UPSC coaching center. Most of you read those compilations. The compilations are 300 pages every month. So, 300 pages every month. When you keep reading that, you have built a second syllabus that has nothing to do with your first ones. Unless You are deliberately linking every headline back to something static. Now let me show you exactly how with three real kind of example news that you will see every month. For example, there is a constitutional or legislative headline. Say, for example, Parliament passes a law reserving one third of seats for women in Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Do not file that as a current affairs fact to memorize on its own. Ask which static concept owns this. Answer is polity, specifically the constitutional amendment process. So go through amendment procedure, go through basic structure, go through articles that are dealing with reservation in legislatures, go through fundamental rights which will be amended because of this amendment. So go through all those things. Now go to your polity notes and under amendments and add one line. Women reservation added via constitutional amendment. Implementation linked to delimitation after next census. In this one news, you will have to do delimitation, you will have to do amendment procedures, you will have to revise basic structure, you will have to revise various fundamental rights as well, and other articles that will be triggered because of this kind of amendment. So, this will always sit in your current affairs file or your static notes of polity as well. Even when the news cycle has passed, you can use these current examples as an add-on fact when you're answering the mains questions. Similarly, when you're talking about environment, let us say there is a new international agreement that sets fresh emission reduction targets. Now see which concept is being asked here. The subject is environment, and it is asking India's climate commitment and mechanisms under agreements like Paris Agreement, nationally determined contributions, climate finance, common but differentiated responsibilities. And now you have to go to your environment notes under international agreements, add new agreement. How does it compare to India's existing NDCs? Does it introduce a new mechanism or does it restate an old one? So stick to the framework. Like this, you have to classify your current affairs into various static concepts. What static concept is it triggering? Similarly, let us say an economy headline says RBI raises the repo rate. Now, in economy, you will have to go to monetary policy, repo rate change, direction, which sector felt is first, credit growth, or inflation control. Now, if you do your static linkages of the current affairs, you will not be memorizing a rate. You will not be memorizing only the current affairs. You will be re-strengthening. You will be preparing those questions that may be asked from your static part in the exam. Now, next thing I would stop is studying without PYQs. Many times I have seen that students will they will finish the syllabus, then they will attempt the PYQs as a mock test, and then they will discover what has mattered. This was the old sequence. The sequence that will actually works is study the topic, pull the PYQ in the same session, let them set your depth. So you have to do reverse PYQ mapping. Say you are studying Parliament in polity. Before you read a single page, pull every PYQ tagged Parliament from last 5 to 7 years. You will notice certain ideas that keep on being asked again and again. For example, definition of money will, powers of the speaker, distinction between a motion of no confidence and essential motion. Those are your deep study targets inside the chapter. Everything else in the chapter gets a lighter first pass. If a topic has not shown in PYQs in 7 years, it get a coverage level attention, not memorization level attention. So PYQs are the maps, not the checkpoint. Studying without them beside you is like memorizing a whole city's street before anyone tells you which neighborhood the exam is testing. Okay? So PYQs are the map, not the checkpoint. Sixth thing I will stop is making notes that are secretly books. Now, if your notes are taking you as long to read as the source, you have just transcribed, you have not distilled. Let me show you exactly what a note should look like at each state using a real topic. For example, let us talk about basic structure doctrine. Now, in full note, you will write the basic structure doctrine came from Keshwanand Bharti case 1973. It held that Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution under Article 368 but cannot alter its basic structure, that is, features like judicial review, federalism, secularism, free and fair elections, separation of powers. This overturned the earlier position that Parliament's amending power was unlimited. So, this is your full note. In revision 2, what you will do is you will trim it down. How you will trim it down? After a few weeks, I usually used to follow 15 days revision program. Now, in the second revision, write Keshwanand Bharti 1973 dash Parliament can amend everything except basic structure. Basic structure includes judicial review, federalism, secularism, separation of powers. Now, again in the third revision, you will condense it further. Instead of writing Keshwanand Bharti full, you will write KB 1973 amend power limited by basic structure, JR, federalism, secularism, separation of power. Now, in the final revision, you will write only the triggers. For example, KB 73 dash basic structure limit. So when you are condensing it like this, what is happening? KB 73 basic structure limit, only 5 words. So what you will do is, first your notes will be very, very concise, and you will also have captured the core idea of that topic. Your notes should shrink with every revision, they should not grow. If they are growing, that means you are transcribing the source again and again, you are not texting your recall. So, in the final stretch, you should be reading revision 4 only. So, this will help in a quick revision of all the subjects. There will be no topic that will be left. Otherwise, what happens? Few days before the exam, there will be some topics which you would not have revised. Why? Because your full notes are like books themselves, 400, 500 pages notes, which you cannot cover in short duration. That is why revision 4 should be very, very concise. I would stop treating CSAT just qualifying. 33%, that is 66 mark of 200 out of 200, that is the entire bar you have to clear in CSAT. And many aspirants miss it. When you miss this bar, what happens? GS1 paper is not even counted. Even if you have cleared your cutoff in GS1, because you did not clear, finally you will be cleared as fail. You must have seen Telegram is full of such mark sheet where people could not qualify the CSAT and they could not sit for they were very deserving, but they could not sit for the mains exam. What you have to do is, you have to do 3 to 4 year full PYQ papers. You should strictly time them. Mostly what happens is, CSAT has become tough. That is a fact. Many times there will be some questions which you would know, but because of the scarcity of time, you fail to attempt various questions that you already knew. That is why you have to strictly time CSAT paper. You should be comfortable with comprehension and basic quantitative reasoning. What is happening is, comprehensions are getting bigger and bigger, and one problem that I have noticed is, people have stopped reading habit has stopped. The rate of reading, or the time that people used to take in reading, has increased. As a result, sometimes an easy comprehension also, which could have fetched you better marks, you fail to attempt it because of the scarcity of time. So you have to practice it continually. Specifically work on your reading skills. You should increase your reading time as well. CSAT comprehension passages are written so that most of the paragraph is there to slow you down. Knowing what you are looking for before you read saves you second and third read through. So read the questions, then go to the comprehension. Every year, well prepared candidates lose a whole attempt because they did not prepare adequately for CSAT, as they thought CSAT was just qualifying. Next thing I would stop is delaying the revision. Many times what you do is you read from spectrum. Let us say we are talking about modern India. Then you go to notes given by a particular IRS. He has made a website as well. Then you go to Bipin Chandra. Three readings have gone by and you have not even you have always reset your brain. So what you need to do is, in the first reading you need to learn the facts. In the second reading you need to test yourself. One cycle that compounds learn, test, analyze, revise, and retest until recall is automatic. And you have to do this in factually heavy subjects like polity, like history. You need to space your revision, you don't need to cluster it. Learn a topic on day one, test yourself on it within the week. Please don't space them 3 months apart. If you do that, second revision will feel like first reading or learning. There is no point in revising them. So try to revise the topics within the week itself. Revise thoroughly 2 3 weeks later and retest once more before you move on to next subject block. Each gap will force your brain to actually retrieve the information instead of just recognizing it, and retrieval is what survives in the exam. A topic that you are not able to retrieve under time pressure is a topic that you have not studied, you have only met it, and what it will do is it will confuse you. You will feel familiarity with those very similar sounding options, and you will attempt it wrong. You will make the question wrong instead of making it right. So, what I would actually study? Tier 1 is 45% of my time I will allot to polity, history, geography, and economy. The subject that will never drop out of relevance. Tier 2, 30%. These are high yield questions which of the time that I will devote to environment and ecology and science and technology. These have smaller ranges. These are mostly current affairs driven, so they will reward attention and one time deep reading. Tier 3 is selective, which I'll give to ancient and medieval history, art and culture, IR, security. Selective time you have to give. And glue that you have to do daily. You have current affairs reintegration, PYQ tagging, revision, and test. Now, zoning out. That is everything I would change about how you study, but there is a second half to this because exam itself has changed too. So we will zoom out from personal habit to what paper is actually doing differently now. 88% of questions in 2026 were long, multi statement problems, pushing the retention load up to an estimated of 40 to 60% over earlier years. Here is what that looks like on page. Earlier, what it used to say is which of these statement is correct, and in those questions you could eliminate one, guess the rest, and still land the answer half of the time. Now, what happens is, now it is asking how many of these statements are correct. So, what you will have to do, every single statement has to be judged independently. There is no elimination shortcut to hide behind, and a single wrong judgment on any of these statements flips your final answer. The exam is testing your reading discipline as well as your knowledge. And that is how you have to train. You have to practice under the actual time pressure of multi statement questions, not a single statement ones, because that is the skill you need on exam day. So 70-30 idea, that is reframed. I won't tell you 70% of the syllabus and ignore 30%. That is how you get burned by one of the topic you wrote off. Instead, go for 70% depth on the recurring foundational areas, the four core subjects, and the concepts PYQ keep returning to year after year. 30% of the breadth you have to keep for those topics that surface once and then vanish for years but still exist somewhere in your memory. So, a single unfamiliar question does not cost your composure in the examination. Biggest thing that I would stop is, it is not medieval history, not Lakshmikant, not current affairs. It is this, that I would stop confusing effort with progress. 10 hour of reading feels productive. But if you can't answer the PYQ, if you can't recall what you studied 3 weeks ago, if you can't revise your own notes, if you can't apply the concepts to a question you have never seen, then those 10 hours are not actually progress. UPSC is a contest in retention, judgment, elimination, application, execution. Sometimes you may spend hours, but these hours are input, and if you are not doing any five of these, then it is a wastage of time. I have made mistakes, I have changed the strategies, I have seen what actually survives in the examination hall. If I were starting from zero today, I wouldn't try to become the person who knows everything. I would try to become the person who knows what to study, how deep to go, when to stop, and how to pull it back out or when UPSC asks. We are not studying more, we are studying better.